The city's pulse thrummed below, but on the rooftop, time stopped. Ezra, 24, stood frozen, heart racing, as he locked eyes with Marcus, a stranger whose gaze held a dangerous promise. In that fleeting moment, Ezra felt a spark, a forbidden connection that could unravel everything he'd fought to keep hidden. One step closer, and there'd be no turning back. Ezra had slipped away from a networking event, the kind where smiles were forced and ambition hung heavy in the air. As a graphic designer in San Francisco, he was used to navigating these scenes, but tonight the crowd felt suffocating. He needed air, space, a moment to breathe. The rooftop bar was a quiet haven, the city's skyline sprawling beneath him, lights flickering like a distant promise. He leaned against the railing, exhaling, when he sensed someone nearby. Marcus stood a few feet away, his presence commanding yet calm. At 32, he carried himself with the ease of someone who knew his power, but didn't flaunt it. "Too loud down there?" he asked, his voice low, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. Ezra's pulse quickened. "Yeah, needed a break," he managed, his words clipped as he tried to steady himself. Marcus stepped closer, his gaze steady, assessing. "I get it. Sometimes you need to step away to see things clearly." Their conversation flowed effortlessly. Art, dreams, the chaos of the city below. Ezra found himself laughing, his guard slipping with every word. Marcus's hand brushed his as he gestured, the touch deliberate, sending a jolt through Ezra's veins. He wasn't out, not fully. His conservative family's expectations loomed large, their voices a constant echo. Stay in line. Don't make waves. But here, with Marcus, he felt a flicker of freedom, a pull toward something he'd buried deep. Marcus leaned in, his voice dropping. "You ever feel like you're living for someone else?" The question hit Ezra like a punch. He nodded, throat tight. "All the time." Marcus's eyes softened, a shared understanding passing between them. "I know that feeling," he said, his tone heavier now. "I've got responsibilities, things that keep me in check." Ezra caught the hesitation, a crack in Marcus's confidence. "Like what?" he pressed, curiosity overriding caution. Marcus looked away, his gaze fixed on the city below. "It's complicated. Let's just say I'm not as free as I'd like to be." The words hung between them, a warning Ezra chose to ignore. He wanted to know more, to peel back the layers of this man who felt both magnetic and unattainable. Their hands brushed again, and this time neither pulled away. The air crackled with possibility, the kind that felt thrilling and dangerous all at once. "You come up here often?" Ezra asked, trying to keep things light. Marcus chuckled, shaking his head. "First time. Sometimes the best things find you when you're not looking." His words carried weight, and Ezra felt them settle in his chest. They stood closer now, the space between them shrinking with every breath. Marcus's gaze locked onto his, intense, searching. "What about you, Ezra? What are you running from?" The question caught him off guard. "I'm not running," he said, but the lie tasted bitter. He was running from his family's judgment, from the fear of being seen, from the parts of himself he'd kept locked away. Marcus didn't push, but his silence felt like an invitation to be honest. Ezra swallowed, his heart pounding. "I just don't know how to be myself sometimes." Marcus nodded, his hand grazing Ezra's arm, a gesture that felt both comforting and charged. "You'll figure it out," he said softly. "Sometimes it takes meeting the right person to see it." The words sent a shiver through Ezra, and for a moment the world below faded. It was just them, the city a distant hum, their connection a fragile thread pulling tighter. But then Marcus's phone buzzed, shattering the moment. He glanced at it, his expression shifting, guarded, almost pained. "I should go," he said, stepping back. Ezra's stomach twisted. "Already?" he asked, trying to mask his disappointment. Marcus hesitated, then offered a small smile. "I'll be back. This isn't over." He turned to leave, but not before his fingers brushed Ezra's one last time, a promise lingering in the touch. As Marcus disappeared down the stairwell, Ezra stood alone, the city's lights blurring before him. His heart raced with a mix of exhilaration and dread. He didn't know Marcus's story, but he felt the weight of it, the secrets hidden behind his words. Something told him this connection would change everything, and not all of it, for the better. Yet, as he stared out at the skyline, Ezra couldn't shake the feeling that he was already too far gone to turn back. Ezra's heart raced as he climbed the stairs to the rooftop again, the city's hum a faint echo below. It had been 3 days since his encounter with Marcus, and the memory of their charged conversation clung to him like a second skin. He didn't know if Marcus would be there, but the pull was undeniable, a mix of hope and recklessness that drove him back. The rooftop was quiet, the air cool against his skin. Marcus stood by the railing, his silhouette sharp against the city's glow. He turned as Ezra approached, a slow smile breaking across his face. "Couldn't stay away, huh?" His voice was warm, teasing, but his eyes held something deeper, something guarded. Ezra shrugged, trying to play it cool. "Thought I'd test my luck." They fell into conversation, picking up where they'd left off. Marcus spoke of his work as a lawyer, the pressure of high-stakes cases, but skirted around his personal life. Ezra shared stories of late-night design projects, the thrill of creating something from nothing. Their words danced around the unspoken, each moment laced with a growing tension. When Marcus's hand brushed Ezra's, it wasn't an accident. The touch lingered, and Ezra felt a surge of defiance against the fears that kept him tethered. His family's disapproval, the whispers at work. "You ever think about just letting go?" Marcus asked, his voice low. Ezra's breath caught. He wanted to say yes, to admit how much he craved a life where he didn't have to hide. But the weight of his reality, parents who expected a perfect son, co-workers who'd judge, held him back. "It's not that simple," he said, voice tight. Marcus nodded, his gaze steady. "I know. Believe me, I know." Their meetings became a ritual. Every few nights, Ezra would slip away to the rooftop, heart pounding with anticipation. Marcus was always there, waiting, his presence a quiet anchor. They'd talk, laugh, share fleeting touches that sent sparks through Ezra's veins. Each encounter felt like a rebellion, a stolen piece of freedom. But Marcus's hesitations grew more noticeable. He'd check his phone, his mood shifting at a text or call, his answers vague when Ezra pressed for details. "Just work," he'd say, or family stuff. The gaps in his story gnawed at Ezra, but the thrill of their connection drowned out the doubts. One night, as they sat close, Marcus's hand resting on Ezra's, he spoke softly. Us, it's dangerous, you know." Ezra's chest tightened. "Dangerous how?" Marcus looked away, his jaw tight. "I've got a life I can't just walk away from. People who depend on me." The words hit like a warning shot. Ezra wanted to ask more, to demand clarity, but fear stopped him. What if knowing the truth broke this fragile thing they'd built? Instead, he leaned closer, their shoulders brushing. "Then why do you keep coming back?" he asked, voice barely a whisper. Marcus's eyes met his, raw and conflicted. "Because I can't stay away." The admission hung between them, heavy with truth. Their fingers intertwined, and for a moment, the world felt small, conquerable. But the city below loomed, a reminder of the lives they were hiding from. Ezra's days began to blur. At work, he caught co-workers' sidelong glances, their whispers hinting at rumors. Had someone seen him leave the event? Did they know where he went? His family's calls grew more frequent, their questions sharper. "When are you settling down?" his mother asked, her tone laced with expectation. Ezra dodged, his secret burning inside him. Marcus was his escape, but the secrecy was a weight, pressing harder each day. One evening, as they stood on the rooftop, Marcus's phone buzzed again. He silenced it, but not before Ezra caught a glimpse of a name: Clara. "Who's that?" Ezra asked, his voice sharper than intended. Marcus hesitated, then sighed. "My wife." The word landed like a blade, cutting through the haze of their connection. Ezra froze, his heart pounding. "Your wife?" he repeated, disbelief mixing with anger. Marcus nodded, his expression pained. "I didn't want to lie to you, Ezra, but it's not what you think. I'm trying to figure things out." Ezra stepped back, the air between them suddenly cold. "Figure what out? You're married, Marcus. What are we even doing?" His voice cracked, betrayal seeping through. Marcus reached for him, but Ezra pulled away. "I can't do this," he said, turning toward the stairs. Marcus called after him, but Ezra didn't stop. The rooftop, once a sanctuary, now felt like a trap. As he descended, the city's noise swallowed him. His mind raced, Marcus's lies, the risk of being seen, the life he'd been pretending to live. He wanted to hate Marcus, to walk away for good, but the pull of their connection lingered, a knot he couldn't untangle. The danger Marcus warned of was real, and Ezra was already caught in it. Ezra's footsteps echoed in the stairwell as he fled the rooftop, Marcus's confession, "My wife," ringing in his ears. The city's pulse roared below, but it couldn't drown out the betrayal twisting in his gut. He'd let himself believe in something impossible, and now the truth burned. Marcus was married. Every touch, every word they'd shared felt like a lie. Ezra's chest tightened, the weight of his own secrets pressing harder. He wasn't out, not to his family, not to most of his co-workers. This was supposed to be his escape, not a new cage. Back in his apartment, Ezra couldn't sleep. His phone sat silent, no messages from Marcus. Part of him wanted an explanation, an apology, anything to make sense of the ache. But another part dreaded it. What could Marcus say to fix this? By morning, Ezra's anger had hardened into resolve. He wouldn't go back to the rooftop. He couldn't. Yet, as he walked to work, the city's skyline taunted him. Each high-rise a reminder of the nights he'd felt alive. At the design studio, the air felt different. Jake, a co-worker with a knack for gossip, leaned over Ezra's desk, his smirk sharp. "Late night again, huh? Saw you sneaking off at the event last week." Ezra's stomach dropped. "Just needed air," he muttered, eyes fixed on his screen. Jake lingered, his tone casual but cutting. "Sure, looked like you had company." The words landed like a threat. Ezra's pulse raced. Had Jake seen Marcus? If word got out, it wouldn't just be office rumors. His family would know, and their disapproval would crush him. Ezra tried to focus, but his mind spiraled. His parents' voices echoed from childhood. Be respectable. Don't shame us. Coming out wasn't an option, not when their love came with conditions. He'd spent years hiding, crafting a version of himself they could accept. Marcus had made him question that, made him want more. Now, that hope felt like a mistake. Against his better judgment, Ezra found himself back on the rooftop that night. He needed answers. Marcus was there, leaning against the railing, his posture tense. "You came," Marcus said, relief flickering in his voice. Ezra didn't smile. "You lied to me," he said, his words sharp. "You're married, Marcus. What was this? Some game?" Marcus stepped closer, hands raised. "It's not a game. I meant every moment with you. But my life, it's not something I can just walk away from." "Then why start this?" Ezra's voice broke, anger and hurt colliding. Marcus sighed, his eyes heavy. "Because I'm tired of hiding who I am. I thought I could have both, my family and you. I was wrong." The admission stung, but it wasn't enough. "You used me," Ezra said, stepping back. "You let me think this could be real." Marcus reached for him, but Ezra shook his head. "Don't. I can't do this." The next day, the consequences crept closer. Ezra's phone buzzed with a text from his mother. "We're coming to the city tomorrow. Dinner, no excuses." Panic surged. If Jake's rumors had reached them, if they suspected anything, dinner would be a confrontation. Ezra tried to call Marcus, but his number was blocked. The rejection cut deeper than he'd expected. He was alone, caught between the life he'd built to please others and the truth he couldn't face. At work, Jake's whispers grew louder. "Heard you've been spending time with some lawyer," he said, loud enough for others to hear. Ezra's face burned, but he stayed silent, his fear of exposure outweighing his urge to fight back. By evening, he turned to Leo, his childhood friend, the only person who knew he was gay. Over coffee, Ezra poured out the story: Marcus, the rooftop, the betrayal. Leo listened, his expression steady. "You don't need him to be yourself," he said. "You're enough, Ezra. Stop hiding." Leo's words sparked something, but the dread of dinner with his parents loomed. When they arrived, their faces were stern, their questions pointed. "We heard things," his father said, voice cold. "About you. About some man." Ezra's heart sank. Jake's gossip had reached them. "It's not what you think," he lied. But his mother's eyes narrowed. "We raised you better than this. You're throwing away everything we gave you." The words were a knife, slicing through years of careful pretense. Ezra stood, his voice trembling. "I'm not throwing anything away. I'm just trying to live." He walked out, their silence louder than any argument. Back on the rooftop, Ezra stood alone, the city sprawling below. Marcus's absence was a void, but so was his family's rejection. He'd lost them both, yet Leo's words echoed, "You're enough." For the first time, Ezra felt a flicker of defiance, not just against Marcus or his parents, but against the fear that had kept him small. The rooftop wasn't a sanctuary anymore. It was a battlefield, and Ezra was ready to fight for himself. Ezra stood on the rooftop, the city's lights pulsing below, but the thrill of this place was gone. His family's rejection echoed in his mind. His father's cold words, his mother's accusing stare. "You're throwing away everything." The sting of Marcus's betrayal lingered too, a wound that refused to heal. Ezra felt untethered, caught between the person he'd been and the one he wanted to be. The rooftop, once a refuge, now mirrored his isolation. He wasn't sure why he kept coming back. His phone buzzed. Leo checking in. You okay? Come to the cafe. Ezra hesitated, then left the rooftop behind. At the cafe, Leo's steady presence grounded him. You don't need to carry this alone, Leo said, sliding a coffee across the table. Your parents, Marcus, they don't define you. Ezra wanted to believe it, but the weight of loss pressed hard. I thought I could handle this, he admitted, voice low. But I'm losing everything. Leo shook his head. You're not losing. You're starting over. Leo's words sparked a flicker of resolve, but the next day brought new pressure. At work, Jake's gossip had spread. Co-workers whispered, their glances sharp. Heard you're causing drama, one said, half joking, half accusing. Ezra's face burned, but he stayed silent, his fear of being fully exposed warring with his anger. He wanted to scream that he wasn't ashamed, but the words wouldn't come. Not yet. That evening, Ezra's phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. It's Marcus. Can we talk? His heart lurched, a mix of longing and fury. Against his better judgment, he agreed to meet, not on the rooftop, but at a quiet park nearby. Marcus looked worn, his usual confidence frayed. I messed up, he said, voice raw. My wife found out. She's leaving me. My firm's sidelining me. I didn't want this to hurt you. Ezra's anger flared. You didn't want to hurt me? You lied, Marcus. You let me believe we had a chance. Marcus stepped closer, eyes pleading. I meant what we had. I still do. But I was a coward, trying to keep both lives. Ezra shook his head, stepping back. I needed you to choose me, not your lies. I can't be your secret anymore. The words felt like a release, cutting the last thread tying him to Marcus. He walked away, his chest tight but lighter, as if he'd shed a weight he'd carried too long. The next morning, Ezra woke to a voicemail from his mother. We need to talk, she said, her tone softer than before. He ignored it, unsure if he was ready to face her. Instead, he took Leo's advice and went to a local LGBTQ+ meetup. The room buzzed with voices, people sharing stories, laughing, unapologetic in their truth. A man named Sam, warm and quick to smile, invited Ezra to join a discussion. For the first time in weeks, Ezra felt seen, not judged. He spoke about his art, his struggles, and found himself laughing, the knot in his chest loosening. But the past wasn't done with him. At work, Jake confronted him again, louder this time. So, you and that guy, what's the deal? The office went quiet, all eyes on Ezra. His heart pounded, but Leo's words echoed. You're enough? He straightened, meeting Jake's gaze. My life's not your business, he said, voice steady. But I'm done hiding. The room stayed silent, but a few co-workers nodded, their expression softening. Jake backed off, muttering, but the moment felt like a victory. That night, Ezra returned to the rooftop, not to wait for Marcus, but to reclaim the space for himself. The city stretched out below, vast and unyielding. He thought of his parents, of Marcus, of the life he'd tried to fit into. Each had shaped him, but they didn't own him. He pulled out his phone and texted Leo. Thanks for being there. I'm ready to start over. As he pocketed the phone, a new message appeared. His mother again. I don't understand, but I want to try. Can we meet? Ezra stared at the words, torn but hopeful. Maybe not all was lost. Standing there, Ezra felt a shift. The rooftop wasn't a battlefield anymore, it was a starting point. He'd faced betrayal, rejection, and his own fear, but he was still here, still fighting. For the first time he believed he could live as himself, not as someone else's version of him. The city below hummed with possibility, and Ezra was ready to meet it head-on. Ezra stood on the rooftop, the city's lights shimmering below like a map of possibilities. The air was crisp, carrying the faint hum of San Francisco's restless energy. This place, once heavy with Marcus's promises and his own fears, felt different now. It wasn't a hideout anymore. It was a vantage point. Ezra had spent weeks wrestling with betrayal, rejection, and the weight of hiding who he was. Tonight he wasn't running. He was choosing. After walking away from Marcus, Ezra had leaned into the community he'd found. The LGBTQ+ meetup became a lifeline. Sam's easy laughter, the shared stories, the quiet strength of people who'd faced their own battles. Each gathering chipped away at the shame he'd carried for years. He started sketching again, his art bolder, reflecting the truths he was finally embracing. At work, the whispers faded. Jake's taunts lost their edge after Ezra's stand, and a few co-workers even asked about his designs, their curiosity genuine. His family was another story. His mother's message, "I want to try," sat unanswered for days. Ezra wasn't sure he could face her, not after the sting of her words at dinner. But Leo, ever steady, pushed him. "You don't owe them anything," he said over coffee, "but closure might be for you, not them." Ezra nodded, the idea settling in. He agreed to meet his mother at a small diner, a neutral space. When she arrived, her eyes were tired, uncertain. "I don't understand your life," she said, voice low. "But I don't want to lose you." It wasn't acceptance, not fully, but it was a crack in the wall between them. Ezra didn't forgive her yet, but he listened. "I need time," he told her, and she nodded, her silence a small concession. Marcus reached out once more, a letter this time, slipped under Ezra's door. "I'm sorry. I wasn't brave enough. I'm trying to be now." It detailed his separation, his choice to live honestly, but it came too late. Ezra read it, then set it aside. Marcus's journey was his own. Ezra's was here, now. He didn't reply. Letting go wasn't easy, but it was necessary. The ache of their connection lingered, but it no longer defined him. At the next meetup, Ezra shared his story, Marcus, his family, the rooftop. The group listened, their nods and quiet support a balm. Sam lingered after, offering to walk him home. Their conversation flowed, effortless, and for the first time Ezra felt a spark that didn't come with fear. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was hope, a chance to build something honest. "You're different lately," Sam said, smiling. "Lighter." Ezra laughed, the sound free. "I'm getting there." Work became a proving ground. Ezra pitched a new project, a series of posters celebrating the city's queer history. His boss, initially hesitant, approved it after seeing his passion. The first poster, a vibrant tribute to the Castro district, earned praise from colleagues. Even Jake, silenced by Ezra's confidence, gave a grudging nod. Each small victory built Ezra's resolve. He wasn't hiding anymore, not from his art, not from himself. One evening, Ezra returned to the rooftop alone. The city stretched out, vast and unjudging. He thought of Marcus's lies, his parents' expectations, the years he'd spent shrinking to fit their molds. Those burdens weren't gone, but they were lighter now, carried with the strength he'd found in community, in Leo, in Sam. His phone buzzed, a text from his mother. "I'm reading about your world. I want to understand." Ezra stared at it, a flicker of warmth cutting through his caution. He typed back, "Let's talk soon." It wasn't reconciliation, but it was a start. As he stood there, the wind carrying the city's pulse, Ezra felt rooted. The rooftop had witnessed his unraveling, the spark with Marcus, the pain of betrayal, the fight to stand tall. Now it marked his beginning. He wasn't the scared 24-year-old who'd first climbed these stairs. He was Ezra, unapologetic, building a life that was his own. The city below buzzed with stories, and he was ready to write his, one honest step at a time. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell. More stories are coming that will move you, inspire you, and challenge the way you see your own journey. Every story matters, and each one brings us closer to who we are meant to become.